Today we are talking about unlocking the equation of existence as we explore the source formula. Now last week we explored what is a thought and started to unpack the source formula starting from nothing at all, just reason and nothing. And if you missed that video, you might want to watch it now because we're going to pick up from there. However, if you haven't seen it, don't worry because I will be doing a very quick recap to bring you up to speed. But if you want something more in depth, then watch that video. But what we're going to be doing today is really exploring the source formula and start to see how it gives rise to existence and especially qualia, and how the answer really lies all around us. Yet people are unable to see what is right in front of them, and that's the great irony. Now keep in mind that when I do these videos, I have to keep them relatively short. So if there's a question that you have or an aspect that we haven't explored yet, don't worry, it's coming. All right, it's coming. But again, if I were to try to explain everything about the source formula, the video would be days long. It would probably be months long. It would be like trying to, someone who has no background in math, trying to bring them up to speed through all of math, all of physics, to try and get them to quantum mechanics in one video. Like, it's just not going to happen. So keep in mind, we're going to be doing a lot of these videos as we unpack and explore the various modes and the various ways that the source formula gives rise to reality. So there's going to be lots of these videos, and today we're going to be exploring a very important one. We will also be reading excerpts from The Holographic Soul by Mike Hockney, who is an extremely intelligent ontological mathematician and philosopher. I highly recommend that book. The link to it will be in the description of this video, and I highly recommend checking it out. So let's begin exploring the equation of existence and unlocking the source formula. So let's begin by doing a quick recap of where we left off. Now keep in mind, this is going to be a very quick recap. So if you want a more in-depth explanation, watch the previous video called What is a Thought Made of? But basically what's happening is we did a thought experiment where we went back before space, before time, before anything at all. And to be able to explain existence, all we're going to use is reason, is our method of inquiry, and nothing. We don't want to start with anything. Religion starts with a creator god. Science starts with the Big Bang or random quantum fluctuations. We start with nothing, just reason and nothing. And from beginning with reason and nothing, we equate nothing to zero. So nothing is equivalent to zero. We unpacked zero and saw that zero can be equal to 1 minus 1. And delving into the philosophical implications of this, we realized that what zero is a unity of opposites. So understanding that zero is a unity of opposites, we want to see how this unity of opposites is mathematically structured. And seeing how it's mathematically structured, we end up getting what's known as an Euler circle or a complex circle. And it's a circle that lies on the complex plane. And it's defined by this formula known as Euler's formula. In Hyperianism, we call this the source formula. And it lies on a complex plane and incorporates all numbers together such that it equals 0. So this circle, this formula, net total, is equivalent to 0. So it is a rational structure that is equal to nothing. And this is the particular structure that we get. It's equal to this. And when we look at, I know that's not a perfect circle, but please forgive my poor drawing skills. And to visualize this formula a little better, here is a graphic demonstration of it. That's just a picture. Hold on, it's supposed to be moving. Here it is. So here is a demonstration. So in the corner, you can see the green circle. This Euler's formula, the source formula, is equivalent to a circle which is equivalent to sinusoidal waves. So starting from nothing, starting from reason, starting from just reason and nothing, we get an Eulerian circle, the source formula, that is equivalent to two sinusoidal waveforms, two frequencies. And we can see that over here in the formula, e to the ix equals cosine x plus I sine x. Cosine x is a wave. I sine x is also a wave. And in addition to this, we know that since one of these circles are possible, we can have a multiplicity of these circles, a myriad of these circles, meaning that we have a myriad of these waveforms. That was a lot of information that I just said, and I don't know, a minute and a half. The last video, we explained all this in probably an hour. So if that all was a little confusing, watch the video called What is a Thought Made of? But this is where we're picking up from. And what we also saw is that starting from nothing and reason, we were able to arrive at these frequencies. These frequencies are mind. And then using a mathematical method known as a Fourier transform, what we can do is transform pure frequencies into space-time information. And when we transform frequencies into space-time information, this is, in ontological mathematics, how we go from mind to matter. So when we have pure frequencies and we start to introduce phase, introducing phase relationships into frequencies is what gives rise to the domain of space, time, and matter. And this is facilitated by a mathematical operation known as a Fourier transform. And if you're wondering what this little line here, this radius is, don't worry about that right now. We're going to get into that in a minute. But again, this is where we are picking up from. And I highly recommend watching my last video, What is a Thought Made of? Because that will fill you in a lot more in everything that I just discussed. So we're also going to be reading some excerpts from a book by Mike Hockney called The Holographic Soul, link in description, highly recommended book. And you'll see why in a moment. So, mind is outside space and time, yet it belongs to the same overarching system as space and time, hence can fully interact with it. In the following diagram, the axes are outside space and time, and everything inside the axes is inside space and time, so you can see exactly how closely related they are. And then the diagram that they are showing is this. This is what they're referring to, okay? And let me break this down. So, mind is outside space and time, yet it belongs to the same overarching system as space and time, hence can fully interact with it. And this is something that's difficult for many people to understand. Let me try and make it a little easier to understand. If you think about a video game and a computer code, the computer code is outside of the video game. When you're inside the video game, you will never break open a game item and ones and zeros will spill out of it. That won't happen. The code is outside of the game. But the code interacts with the game. Just because it's not in it doesn't mean it can't interact with it. The game is a manifestation of the code. Another way to think of this is, if you see your friend's mind isn't inside of space and time. If you crack open your friend's head, his mind isn't going to spill out, but his mind interacts with space and time through a manifestation, through his body. Another way to understand this is through the idea of a hologram. And a lot of people aren't familiar with what holograms are because movies and television and computer games have distorted what a hologram actually is. But if you take a very, very basic hologram, basically what you have is that you have a source beam, a laser, and a laser shoots out light, and this light then interacts with a holographic plate, a holographic film, and then forms a hologram. So you have the laser, which is over here, and then you have the holographic plate, which forms a hologram that's on the other side. So the source beam isn't inside of the hologram. However, the light is what gives rise to the hologram. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I think the best analogy is the one of a computer game and a computer code. Okay, the code isn't in the game, but the code exists it interacts with the game and is responsible for the game. And this does take some higher thinking to really be able to grasp and put your mind around it. So when we are looking at Euler's formula here, the source formula, here's something that we have to really break down. When we are talking about, so what this formula does, okay, is it generates a sine and a cosine. It generates waves. But what we are going to do now is do something a little bit different, because we can use this formula to do many different types of things. When we are thinking about sine and cosine waves, like in this formula here, we're simply looking at the relationships between a circle and waveforms. Now, when we are talking about space, time, matter, and mind, we are going to use this formula in a different way. Because phase information is what gives rise to space and time, we are going to use the formula in a different way now. We're going to use it to model and represent phase. Okay? So keep in mind, we are using it in a different way. When we are using Euler's formula, when we are using the source formula to model and represent phase, then the axes, all right, the axes, the horizontal and the vertical line, represent mind, and everything that falls in between the axes, that is interaxial, represent what will become space and time, because it contains non-orthogonal phase information. Go with me here, because I'm going to explain what all this means. So, if we have a pure sine wave, will be just sine x, okay? However, by introducing phase information, we have sine, let's say, x plus theta. So this plus theta, this theta here is phase information. And this is going to be extremely important when talking about the generation of space, time, and matter. Let me bring the book back up here before we get into that. So mind is outside space and time, yet it belongs to the same overarching system as space and time, hence can fully interact with it. Let me move this. Let's see if I should. No, I don't really have a better place for this. I guess it'll just have to stay there. So in the following diagram, and this is the diagram that we're talking about, the axes are outside of space and time. They are mind. And everything inside the axes is inside space and time. And that's explained in a simplistic way. If you want a fuller breakdown of that, oh man, you're going to have to read my book, Ontological Mathematics, The Science of the Future. But we can say that simply. So mind reflects axial activity associated with orthogonal phase relations. Matter is interaxial behavior connected with non-orthogonal phase relations. We have said it before, and we shall say it again, the whole of existence, every secret and mystery of life, is reflected in the above diagram. Unlocking all of its mysteries is the key to everything. To understand the ontology of this diagram is to understand the whole of reality. So, let me explain something here. So when we have this particular expression, sine x, this is a wave of pure mind, pure frequency. When we have an expression like this, sine x plus theta, we're now introducing phase relations, and this is now an impure wave that contains information via its phase relationship that gives rise to space and time. So let me see what you guys can see here. Okay, so sine of x plus theta is equal to so sine x plus theta is equal to a cosine theta plus b sine theta. Now, what does this mean? What this means is that a wave that has non-orthogonal phase relations is not just a pure sinusoid anymore. So this wave here, just pure, let me get rid of, hold on, let me grab my eraser. Let me get rid of this one. So, this wave right here, just a pure sine wave. It's a pure sine wave, and that's it. This wave here, sine x plus theta, is now a mixed wave. It's a combination of diminished, partial, curtailed, fractional, other waves, a mix of waves. And the reason now that we get this sort of impurity is how space and time arise. So pure sine waves lie on the axes when we're modeling phase. A wave that has phase is going to lie somewhere in between. So it could lie anywhere. It could lie here, 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 here. It could lie absolutely anywhere on this circle. For explanation's sake, let's say that it lies right here. And then this line is drawing a radius to it to represent where it lies. So if we drop down, all right, so we want to drop down a vertical here to see where it lies on this axis. And then let's draw one here as well. So what this means, let's use another color so we don't get confused. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see the blue, but hopefully. So this red radius represents sine x plus theta, which is equal to a mix of two partial waves. And you can see this represented here, right here. I'm trying to draw it sort of thick so you can see it since you're far away. And right here. So this radius is equal to two pieces, two partial waves added together. So a pure frequency, a pure sinusoid is not. It's just, it is what it is. It's a sinusoid. A sinusoid that exhibits non-orthogonal phase relation is equal to a mix of waves. Another way to say this is that it has a projection. And this mix, or this projection, is what ultimately is going to give rise to space, time, and matter. And the reason why that it can give rise to space, time, and matter, well, it does so for a number of reasons. But one reason that we can understand this is that in addition to using Euler's formula to model phase, we can also use it to model velocity. And being that this is mind, everything travels with a velocity equal to light speed. And I know that I haven't really gotten into that before, but the reason why that mind travels at the speed of light is because light is mind, and light is maximally time dilated and maximally length contracted, which means it doesn't experience time and it has no spatial dimensionality. It's mind. So, if we are using Euler's formula and we are using the amplitude to model velocity, then we see that this mental wave that travels at light speed is made up or projects two lesser waves that are traveling at less than light speed. And when you have something that's traveling at less than light speed, you start to get dimensionality. You start to get spatiality. You start to get temporality, because it is no longer maximally length contracted and maximally time dilated. So, by introducing orthogonality, okay, this wave here, this wave is still mind, but it gives rise to or projects or is mixed or formed from, it's hard to explain, but this side over here is the side that is ultimately giving rise to space, time, and matter. And the reason why is because now you are starting to get partial information, fractured information. And that's what the space-time reality is. Space-time reality is a partial, fractured viewpoint. So, right now, are you experiencing all of existence? No, you're not. You're experiencing a filtered, fractured, localized version of existence. Are you experiencing all of reality? No. You're only experiencing what's immediately around you. You're only experiencing, you're only hearing what's in your vicinity. You're only seeing a very small portion of it. If you were able right now to experience all of reality all at once, simultaneously, it would all resolve to pure mind and pure nothingness. It's only because we are viewing a fractured, filtered, limited, localized version of reality that things take on the appearance of dimensionality and all the different experiences that we have. If everything is nothing and nothing is everything, if we experienced everything, we would see that it is nothing, and if this hopefully makes some kind of intuitive sense to you. So it is only our fractured view of reality that allows us to experience the holos in the way that we do. So basically, this side over here is the mental side when we experience things in wholes. This side over here is when we start to get into the fractured partiality. So we can imagine that if we cover this side of the equation and we're only looking at this side of the equation, that's a bit like looking at the space-time view. And this view is the mental view. And when we're in the space-time view, we're only looking at fractured pieces. We're not looking at the whole thing. We're looking at the thing broken up, filtered, and slowed down. And when we start looking at the thing fractured, filtered, and slowed down, this is when we start to get a localized experience of reality. When we don't have phase, we don't have this fractured view. This fractured view, there is no fractured view because there is no projection. There is no longer a projection. So when we have this, when we start introducing phase information, is when we start to be able to get this fractured, portional, localized, slower form of reality. And this is what gives rise to space, time, and matter. And again, if this sort of thing interests you, I always want you to remember that when I do these live streams, this is just a quick summary. If this interests you and you want to know more, check out my book, Ontological Mathematics, The Science of the Future. Check out the book, Euler's Formula and Special Relativity. by Dr. Thomas Stark, and all Stark's book, and also books by Mike Hockney as well. These are where you can find more information on ontological mathematics. Dr. Cody Newman also has a good book. Anyway, my point is that always remember this is a brief summary, and I will be doing more videos to get more and more in depth into all these different caveats. Like everything that I've just explained, we could have taken any one of those tangents or elements and just talked about it for hours, but we're going to try and move on and piece it all together, and in other videos we'll explore these different things that I've spoken about in even more depth. But hopefully that's beginning to make some intuitive sense to you, and that when we start to introduce phase relations, we're now starting to give rise to the realm of space, time, and matter. So let's bring up the book. Oh, and this is what it means by the axes are related to mind, and the interaxial, everything in between, is related to matter. So yes, the axes are either pure sines or pure cosines. When we get interaxial phase relations, we get expressions like this, which have phase information, which give rise to what will ultimately become space, time, and matter. So, I see She-Wolf says 4 pages of notes so far. Awesome. So, if we want to be real technical about it, everything in the interaxial portions are still mind, but they give rise to matter. Do you see how it's very difficult to make just a pure statement, because there's always the two sides of it. There's always the mental side and the frequency, the frequency and the space-time side. So the waves that are on the axes, when we're using Euler's formula to model phase, the waves associated with the axes are pure mind. They're pure sine waves. They're pure cosine waves. The waves that are interaxial, lie in between, are still mind, but because they have phase information, they are what you might call impure mind. Because they're no longer pure, they are a mix. And you can see that mix by looking and seeing the portions of the axes that they contain. They're now a combination. And when you have this combination, you can see you start to get a fractured view. And this fractured, limited, slower view, when we use this to model velocity, we can see it starts to, it also implies a slower velocity. We start to get dimensionality, we start to get temporality, we get space, time, and matter. Okay? So remember, there's always the dual side of space, time, and frequency, or mind and matter. Frequency gives rise to mind. Mind gives rise to matter. And this is what a Fourier transform is all about. Fourier transform is all about the mixing of sinusoidal waves. So let's continue a bit here, because I have to continue, because I want to actually, I always get, there's so much to unpack, but I want to be able to move forward. But remember, we'll do more streams when we unpack more and more of this. So, the whole of existence, every secret and mystery of life, is reflected in the above diagram. This diagram here. This is the source formula. Everything is a manifestation of this formula. Unlocking all of its mysteries is the key to everything. To understanding the ontology of this diagram is to understand the whole of reality. And to understand the ontology of this diagram means to understand the diagram not just in terms of abstract mathematics, but to understand how it relates to reality. Because you can look at this diagram all day long, and you can do a ton of abstract mathematics with it. But the key to Hyperianism and ontological mathematics is to understand how this diagram relates to reality, how it manifests in reality, what the implications are with the study of being, the study of reality itself. The mind, the soul, zero and infinity, light, broken light relationship, matter, the mind-matter interaction. And that's another thing, right? This is light and this is broken light. Do you see how we can have pure sine waves, which is pure light? Then we can have broken light. Do you see how we're kind of running on this intuitively? If you don't, I'm assuming that many people watching don't have a heavy mathematics background, but do you see how we are using sinusoids are pure light? By introducing phase information, on one side we have light, and then we are having do you see how it's broken into pieces now? All of reality, matter, is broken light, fractured light. Pure mind, pure thought, is pure light. Everything else, matter, space and time, that is all broken light. The physicist Bohm, father of Bohmian mechanics, said the universe is frozen light. The universe it's broken, slowed down, frozen light. You can just replace the word light with thought or mind. The physical universe is slowed down, broken, frozen thought. That's what thought. It's frozen. It's thought move. And if anyone's familiar with Hegelian philosophy, keep in mind that all of this is very similar to Hegelian philosophy, just expressed in terms of mathematics instead of Hegelian logic. So the philosopher Bertrand Russell is notorious for not being able to understand Hegel very well. But Bertrand Russell basically said, Hegel's essentially saying that physical reality is jellied thought. And that's kind of a funny way to put it. But yeah, it's a funny way to put it, but that's what Bertrand Russell tried to say in describing Hegel's thought about reality as much as possible. So if you have thought that sort of solidifies and jellos itself, again, I know it's kind of a funny way to put it, but it's sort of a good way to think about. In Hegel's philosophy, you have the idea, which is a structure of thought, a structure of reason, that others itself, and material reality is an expression of thought that has externalized itself. And in Hyperianism and ontological mathematics, we express this very rigorously in a mathematical way and go, much beyond Hegel and show that reality is a structure of thought or light, because the mind and light is the same thing, pure light, pure mind, that then fractures and slows, and this fracturing and slowing down is what becomes matter. All of reality is thought. It's just expressed in a different way. All of reality is thought, just expressed in a different way. See, it's like two sides of the same coin. That's what a Fourier transform is. Frequency versus space-time, mind versus matter, light versus broken light, Fourier mathematics, the afterlife, and then here we have, we'll continue in the book here. Fourier math, mind versus soul, light versus broken light, matter and mind, the afterlife, reincarnation, becoming God, the Hegelian dialectic, Leibniz monadology, the ancient principle of as above, so below, as above, so below, are all implicit in this diagram. It's the basis of the grand unified final theory of everything. It's the basis of electromagnetism, axial behavior, wave-particle duality, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, the quantum mechanical wave function, the strong and weak nuclear forces, and gravity. Arriving at the truth isn't actually all that difficult. Recognizing it as the truth is close to impossible. And that's the thing. That's the thing, is that, physicists, scientists, mathematicians have been working with this equation for years. Finding the truth isn't all that hard. But seeing it as the truth, that is the difficult part. I just did a video on the Gospel of Thomas where it says, recognize what is right in front of you, and all will be revealed to you. The kingdom of God is inside and outside. Recognize what is right in front of you. It's right there. It's right in front of you, all around you. We are within a reality of fractured thought, fractured mind, a collective, collaborative dream world. The equations are right there. Mind and matter. But recognizing it and understanding it and seeing it, that's a completely different story and is next to impossible. So if you are beginning to recognize it and understand, have pride and feel good about yourself. Because even if this seems kind of hard to grasp, if you're beginning to grasp it, you are light years beyond the vast majority of humanity, because it is next to impossible for humans to understand this. Because they are so mired in their senses, they can't use their reason to recognize the truth of existence, even though it's literally staring them in the face and all around them. We are the creators of this reality. And this is our dream world that we can shape however we so will. When we all collectively come to realize what we are and where we are and attain that level of consciousness. Humanity was once just instinctual, but at a certain point we became self-aware. Now, through Hyperianism, through ontological mathematics, humanity can rise from self-awareness to an absolute awareness, a hyper-awareness. And that's what we are all about, is instantiating and initializing that next evolutionary step that is literally beyond self-awareness. So if you're beginning to grasp this, again, feel good, have pride about that. There's nothing wrong with having pride when it's done deservedly and without excess. This is a very difficult thing to grasp, and if you're beginning to grasp it, you are rising beyond the standard consciousness of the masses. So, arriving at the truth isn't actually all that difficult. Recognizing it as the truth, that's close to impossible. The task is this: to take something eternal and necessary, the content of the above diagram, and to comprehend how it gives rise to all of the temporal, contingent things and events of the world. Now, I want to emphasize again, remember, we're at the very beginning here. So when I'm showing you that, this wave breaks down into a fractured, slowed down, partial combination, don't think that I mean, all of reality is made of these two waves here. No, this is just the most basic part. When you start combining these together, this is where we get into Fourier mathematics, and we start building structures, frequency structures, space-time signals that get more complicated and more complicated and more complicated until you start to give rise to a structure that is an electron, a structure that is a proton, a structure that is a neutron, a structure that is an atom, and then a structure that is a molecule, and a structure that is a body. But the point is that they can all be broken down and broken down and broken down and broken down and understood from this viewpoint as being comprised of frequencies. So don't think it's like, oh, it's just no, we're going to start adding a vast multiplicity of all these together to create structures. But I'm just showing you the most basic one to get an idea of it. Basically what it's like is, say that we lived in a Lego world. What I'm doing is I'm taking all the Lego structures and breaking it down into the most very basic piece that you can possibly imagine and saying, hey, look, everything is made out of this simplistic piece. So this is just one of the pieces. We're going to combine all these pieces together to create complex structures. And as Fourier mathematics shows, we can combine frequencies to create any physically realizable waveform, no matter how complex it is, even if it's as complex as the universe itself. So we can use these waveforms to create a wave structure that is as complicated as the universe itself. And then when there are bodies, we insert ourselves into these bodies. What do these bodies do? These bodies localize ourselves. They select for partial fractured information. Do you see the entirety of the electromagnetic spectrum? Do you see X-rays and gamma rays and ultraviolet rays? No, you only see the visible light. You only see a piece. Do you see all of reality? No, you only see what's immediately around you. Your avatars are designed to only select for partial information, not the whole thing. Your senses are designed to select for the information that is associated with space, time, and matter, not with the whole, not with the mind. And the reason why that is because in the early stages of evolution, we are trying to evolve. And to evolve, we're trying to survive. And if we are not focused on our immediate localized surroundings, a predator will come and eat us. So that is why your bodies, your avatars, our senses develop to select for partial information. It's due to natural selection, evolutionary processes, all wrapped up in teleology, to evolve into, eventually divinity and apotheosis and godhood. But survival is the most basic form of that, because you have to be alive to be able to evolve. If you're not alive, you're not going to have the opportunity to evolve. So the above diagram is mathematics as noumenon, as it presents itself to our non-sensory reason, while science is mathematics as phenomenon, as it presents itself to our senses. Since our reason seems abstract, while our senses seem to deal with the concrete, people imagine that phenomena are real and noumena somehow ideal or unreal. Okay, now this, what we're going to talk about now, is really important. Now, something I want to emphasize before we continue here is I want to say, if you have stuck with me so far in the video, again, take pride, because you're interested in what's important. A lot of people are going to click off, they're going to be like, oh, he's not talking about angels or aliens. What's all this math? This is boring. If this is interesting to you, if this matters to you, again, be proud of that. Because the vast majority of humanity could care less. But this is what's truly important. Okay? So again, even if you're watching the replay and you've made it this far, be proud of yourself. Most humans couldn't care less about this. But if you're even understanding this to some degree, or even interested in this in some degree, even on an intuitive level, you understand what's important. And by the way, if you are watching the replay, keep in mind you should join us when we're live, because we have questions and answers, and we're also doing a giveaway at the end, and you can all be a part of that. But anyway, we're continuing here now, and what we're going to talk about is really the importance of, because so far we're talking about the structure. We're talking about how reality is structured mathematically, but we also want to understand and not forget. Don't forget, because this is what a lot of people make a mistake when they come across ontological mathematics is they can confuse it with abstract mathematics. Abstract mathematics is the kind of mathematics you learn when you go to school, on just scratch marks on paper, just completely abstract concepts, just abstract notation. Ontological mathematics is about mathematics that is alive, which means that sinusoids aren't just pure form, they also carry with it a content. And what is that content? It is an experience. And this is what I mean. And this is very crucial, okay? So, all of reality is living mathematics as expressed by these various sinusoidal waves. We are living mathematics. That's what we are. So, when we, as living mathematics, experience reality around us, that is what it is like to be a system of living mathematics experiencing itself or other portions of that mathematical structure. So what I'm trying to say this is that every sinusoid has both a form and a content. When we're looking at stuff like this, we're looking at the form. We can take a look at the form of a wave. We can look at the form of a sinusoid and look at all the different properties of that sinusoid. We can look at its phase, we can look at its frequency, we can look at its amplitude, we can look at its period, we can look at all the different formal properties of that wave. But every wave, in addition to its form, carries with it a content. For example, the content of that wave might be the experience of the color red. Now, do you see the difference between rationally understanding its formal structure, its frequency, its wavelength, its amplitude, its period, and experiencing the color red? They're both a flip side. Again, it's like two sides of a coin. One is the form, and the other is the content. When you experience the color red, that color red is conveyed by a wave that has a certain form, a certain period, a certain wavelength, a certain frequency. But I want you to understand that it is our senses and our experiences and our subjective mode that allows us to experience the content. But it is our reason that gives us access to the form. So imagine a baby. A baby can experience the color red. It's experiencing content. But the baby can't have any concept of wavelength or frequency or period. It hasn't developed its rational faculties yet to access that formal aspect. The formal aspect is always there, but we have access to it via our reason. The form is the structure, and the content is how we experience that structure. A baby can experience that structure, but it can't know its form. And now imagine a blind person. A blind person can't experience the color red via their senses, via their physical senses, but they can know rationally the form of the wave structure that carries that content. So do you see that it's important to also know there are all these different, not only is there the aspect of mind and matter, but there's also the aspect of form and content. So let's continue here. And that's important to realize. your wave structure experiencing other wave structures. That is what it is like to be mathematics experiencing mathematics. Leibniz says music is the pleasure that the mind has when it's counting without realizing that it's counting. Music is mathematics, and we as mathematical entities find music incredibly enjoyable because we're experiencing mathematical symmetry and dissonance and all different mathematical forms and structures. But it's not like we know that explicitly. I mean, some of us do. We do. But most humans don't think of that. But that's what it's like to experience music. You're a mathematical entity experiencing mathematics. It's the joy and pleasure of experience mathematical expression. And that's true of everything, not just music, but everything. So when you strip away, so everything is this dual aspect of appearance or phenomena and form or noumena. So form, noumena, it's the mathematical structure. Content, phenomena, is the experience conveyed by that mathematical structure. Red, blue, green, hot, cold, hate, love, pain, pleasure. That's all content. And all that content also comes with it a structure. And when you strip away all appearances, you're left with just pure math itself, pure structure, the stuff of pure reason. You can only access the structure via reason. You access the content otherwise via just pure subjective experience. But the structure itself is accessible only to reason. And scientists have never understood this. Right? This is why scientists are obsessed with empiricism and observation. And this is why empiricism and observation and induction will never get to the ultimate truth of reality, because the ultimate structure of reality is the stuff of pure reason, not the stuff of observables. Not the stuff that you can physically observe. It's formal, it's structure, it's pattern, it's relationship. To comprehend existence, what you must do is map pure reason, mathematics, to the phenomenal, sensible world of sensations and feelings. The trick is to grasp that mathematics is the rational information carrier, while the information carried is the empirical experience, which we encounter as sensations and feelings. So when we want to know what reality, and this is something that people always get confused, especially when it comes to New Ageism and Eastern religion. There is a difference between knowing reality and experiencing reality. Knowing reality has to do with formal structure, and this is only accessible via reason. I mean, intuition plays a part, but I'm not going to get into the technical details there, okay? But mind, reason, okay? Experiencing reality, there's nothing wrong with experiencing reality. Experiencing reality is great, but just realize that there is a difference between experience and knowledge. You can have an animal or a baby or whatever experience many different things. But do they have the rational capacity to convert that experience into knowledge? No, they don't. Experience can be used as a tool, and experience is wonderful and beautiful. I never want you guys to think I'm knocking experience. I'm just saying experience is not knowledge. Experience and knowledge are two different things. Knowledge deals with the pure formal aspect of existence, while experience deals with how we encounter that information. Right now, look around you. You're encountering sinusoids and wave structures. You're encountering, when you look around you, you are encountering and experiencing the information, the content conveyed by a mathematical structure. You are not experiencing the mathematical structure itself, you're experiencing what is conveyed by the mathematical structure. Using your reason, you can know what that mathematical structure is. So do you see how there's a big difference between experience and knowledge? Reason lets us have knowledge. Experience doesn't necessarily give us knowledge. Again, you could have an animal or a baby have all the experiences and all of reality, but they don't have the reason to convert that experience into knowledge. That's why things like psychedelics can be kind of useless on some people. Only those who have a rational capacity to then reflect on those experiences and convert it into knowledge can be a useful tool. That's why things like psychedelics don't give you knowledge, they give you experiences. If you are a very rational person, you can then use your reason to reflect on those experiences and try to abstract and derive knowledge from that. But again, you know, you can load up an animal with all the psychedelics in the world. Don't do that, by the way. That's animal abuse. I'm just saying, because they don't have the rational faculties, they're not going to be able to reach any form of knowledge. Again, there's nothing wrong with experience. Experience is amazing, but it is not knowledge. I know I'm saying this a lot, but the reason why I'm saying it a lot is because this is a very difficult thing for people to understand, and many people get this confused when they encounter Hyperianism and ontological mathematics. And things like Eastern religion and mysticism and New Ageism, they're actually obsessed with experience, not with knowledge. They're obsessed with, you know, experiencing cosmic oneness or experiencing, you know, different altered states. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Experience is wonderful. But it's not knowledge, it's not truth, it's an interpretation. It's a subjective experience. So to comprehend existence, what you must do is map pure reason, mathematics, to the phenomenal sensible world of sensations and feelings. So what you want to do is figure out the formal structure of reality and then map that to the world of experiences that we have. See how it relates to the world of experiences. You see the difference? You're trying to uncover the code. It's like being, okay, so what that means is, like, again, imagine if you're in a computer video game. Imagine you're in a video game world. What you want to do is you don't want to just experience more and more of the video game world. I mean, that's fun. That's great. That makes the game fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to know what the game is, what you want to do is understand the code. And to understand the code, you have to be able to map the code onto the game world. Meaning you have to study the code using your reason to see how the code combines and gives rise to the game world, the world of experience. Okay? Is that kind of making sense? I hope so. This is, if you can understand this, again, this is beyond most scientists cannot grasp this. It is beyond the grasp of most people. So if you're beginning to, grasp these ideas, be proud of yourself here. And the reason why I emphasize that is because a lot of people, they're like, oh man, I have a hard time with math. And don't worry about it. Don't worry about that. If you're starting to understand this on any kind of level, keep at it, keep going with it, because you have a lot of potential. So the trick is to grasp that mathematics is the rational information carrier while the information carried is the empirical experience we encounter as sensations and feelings. Kind of like how a video game code manifests itself as the game world. And remember, this is just a loose analogy because a code can make it seem like reality is really dead. Always remember that mathematics is alive. It's living frequency. Right? It's not like dead computer code. It's living frequency. But the computer code analogy is a good way to wrap your mind around it. Humanity is so confused about existence because it can't relate sensations and feelings to math. To most people, that seems like the most opposite, different, opposed things in the world. And that's because they're brainwashed and taught math wrong, incorrectly in school. They can't see how sensations and feelings could possibly relate to math, but that's because math is living frequency. It's a living frequency structure, and we are living frequency structures experiencing other living frequency structures. And this gives rise to us qualia, qualitative experience. Everything has a certain quality to it. Just like an electromagnetic wave has a certain frequency, wavelength, amplitude, but we experience it as red. It's just a mathematical structure, but we experience it as red. It's living. So, humanity is confused about existence because it can't relate sensation and feelings to reason or math. That's why it turns to religion, philosophy, and science. Yet all it has to do is distinguish between the noumenon and the phenomenon, the form and the content, the rational and the empirical, the metaphysical and the physical, the information carrier and the information carried, the signifier and the signified, what can be known and what can be experienced, the code and the game world. You are lost if you can't grasp that sensory things are grounded based on non-sensory, rational things, and that emotional things are based on, non-emotional, rational things. This is a dual aspect monism, not any kind of Cartesian dualism. So it's important to understand that in Hyperianism and ontological mathematics, there's only one thing, and that is reason, that is living mathematics, that is frequency. But each of these frequencies have a dual aspect to them, the formal aspect and the experiential aspect. Again, think about an electromagnetic wave. There's the formal aspect, the wavelength, the frequency, and there's the experiential aspect, red, blue, green. The empirical sensation or feeling is the information carried by the rational carrier. Redness is the information that you experience via the frequency carrier that has specific rational properties that we can know via reason. You can't get math, pure rationalism, without sensations and feelings. They seem unrelated to each other, but they are actually just the flip side of each other. So you can't get one without, they come paired together. They are linked together. This is why mathematics is living. Okay, and this is why it's so different from abstract. Remember, ontological mathematics is world different from the mathematics that you learn in school. In school, they're just scratch marks in paper. In Hyperianism and ontological mathematics, all math, all sinusoids, all frequencies are paired with experiences, qualia, sensations, feelings. It's alive. It's living. Now, I'm just saying it so much because I'm like, please understand this, because so many people can't grasp this. And they just, they get so lost because they start thinking of math as just abstractly as scratch marks in paper, and they can't figure out how they link to each other. But they're linked. Math is alive. It's living frequency. Empiricism is not separate from rationalism. It's the way the rational world is actually experienced. The rational world is simply the empirical world stripped of all appearances and feelings, leaving nothing but sensory, non-emotional math. So, again, the world has this dual aspect to it. You have this formal aspect. And again, right, it's very, to me, and I'm sure to many of you, this is all very exciting. But, some people can look at this and think it's dry, it's non-emotional, and, that's true. Reality is living frequency. And when we're looking at this is us looking at living frequency in its formal aspect, its structural aspect, in its aspect stripped of all of its qualitative experiences. We're looking at its pure form. When you look around you right now, just stop for a moment and look around you. Now, if you're just looking around you and you just turn your mind off, you're not rationally examining anything, you're just having a pure experience like an animal or a baby would. When you're having a pure experience like an animal or a baby would, you're just taking in sensation and you're just taking in the experiential side of living frequency, of mathematics. So do you see the two sides? You have the experiential just taking in, and then you have the structure, which is accessed via pure reason. No animal or baby can do what we're doing here, but an animal or a baby can certainly just, look around and take in the experience. And the reason why this is so important to understand is because a lot of New Ageism, Eastern religion, and mysticism doesn't understand this. And what they're actually trying to do is get you into a mode of consciousness that is regressive, that is unevolved, that is putting you back into the state of an animal or a baby, where you're just taking in pure experience and not reasoning at all. Again, there's nothing wrong with experience. It's fabulous and it's wonderful. But if we want to have true knowledge, know thyself, if we want to know what reality is, we use reason to access this. This is what gives us true knowledge. So, Eastern religion, New Ageism, mysticism, can't emphasize enough. It does not give you knowledge. It gives you experience. And it's putting you in a state, much like a baby, and much like an animal state, where you're just taking in pure experience. Remember, living mathematics has both. It has the pure experience when you're just looking around, and then it has the formal structure that we examine right here and right now via reason. Again, an animal and a baby can't do this because you need to have a developed faculty of reason, linear processing, and a fully developed neocortex, which the animals don't have, to be able to access this knowledge. To be able to have a rich and full and meaningful life, we want both, okay? We want knowledge and experience. We want to be able to know what reality is, and we also want to experience love and each other and happiness and building a world. We don't want to deny one or the other, but we have to know that there's a proper place for everything. And that when we want to experience reality, that's fine, we can go out and do that. But when we want to know reality, which means knowing what existence is, knowing what we are, and reaching a higher level of consciousness, that's when reason is involved and we examine the form. New Ageism, mysticism, occult, Eastern religion, that's not giving you knowledge, it's giving you experience, which is dropping your level of consciousness, not raising it, okay? So, man, I feel like it feels sort of like I'm talking about this for a long time, but it's so misunderstood, and I feel like I could keep going because I'm sure some people out there are going to misunderstand this, but I'm hoping, you know, I'm sure that the majority of you guys get where I'm coming from and know what I'm trying to convey. So, as happened with last time, there was actually a lot more that I wanted to get into. I wanted to get into the nature of light, the ether, special relativity, the absolute reference frame, the Michelson and Morley experiment. However, oh my God, we've already gone a very long time, and I haven't been able to get into all that. So, we will probably start getting into light and how it relates to everything we've been talking about, absolute reference frame, special relativity, and all that in another video. But I hope you guys understood this. The greatest thing to take away from this is to start understanding, you know, how the phase relationships and the fracturing of mind gives rise to partial viewpoints. That's really important. That's how mind generates matter. And then also understanding the difference between form and content. Form and content is the mathematical structure versus the content is how we experience the information carried by that mathematical structure. Because remember, mathematics is living frequency. Now, don't make the mistake in thinking that mind is form and that matter is content. That's not true. Mind has a form and content, and matter also has a form and content. Right? So that's important to understand. Matter has a formal structure and an experiential content, and mind also has a formal structure and an experiential content. Okay, so a lot of people who are new to ontological mathematics make the mistake in thinking that mind is form and matter is content, and that's not necessarily true. Mind has a formal aspect and an experiential aspect, and matter, space-time, has a formal aspect and an experiential aspect as well. And that's related to the Fourier transform, right? How you have a frequency structure versus a space-time structure. Frequency structures you can experience frequency structures, and you can experience space-time structures. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this topic. We unpacked a lot, and we have a lot more to unpack. If you guys enjoyed these videos, let me know in the comments. Tell me, and I will continue doing more mathematical videos where we unpack things in a more detailed and rigorous fashion like this. If you guys enjoy this, always let me know in the comments. It helps a lot in letting me know what type of videos you guys like and what to continue creating. I want to give a shout out to all my supporters on Patreon, especially White Rabbit, John Jerome, Rex, and Naruda, and all our top supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you for making my channel possible. If you want to support my work, the best way to support is on Patreon, and you'll get access to our weekly secret live streams.